Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Karina Galvez. I'll be your hostess tonight. It's a great week in general for the world. It's a great week for women. And we have seen many historical facts happen today around women. And we thank all the wonderful women who are here. We thank all the wonderful men who were born from wonderful women who are here. And we would like to welcome you to this webinar in which we will focus the power of women in science and how much much powerful they can get when they are into science. First, let me tell you a little bit about the Guayaquil Space Society. Guayaquil Space Society was founded on November 6, 2019. And Guayaquil is usually a pioneer in general. We happen to be the first space society in the whole Latin America. Guayaquil was also one of the first places where the United States had a consulate. In fact, William Wheelwright was the first consul general in Guayaquil, based on something that was called the Treaty of Peace, Friendship, Navigation, and Commerce in 1824. We also have great relationships with the embassy and the consul general of the United States in Ecuador. In fact, when the GSS, the Guayaquil Space Society, was founded, we had the honor to have a Consul General Andrew Scheer speak. And I take this opportunity to say hello to U.S. Ambassador Michael Fitzpatrick and Consul General Brian Quigley. Now, we typically have webinars where there is simultaneous translation. Not in this one, because one of the great organizations backing us up to tonight is the CEN, the Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano. And so the idea is for us to help you practice English and help you realize how important learning English is. So if you speak English perfectly, then that is absolutely great, and it could be thanks to the CEN, the Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano. If you don't speak English, well, this is your time to sign up for classes at the CEN. They do have locations in different parts of Ecuador. Now, we are going to, I do have some interesting wording to say today. And please bear with me if I cannot pronounce this correctly. And if I don't pronounce it correctly, then I ask you to please pronounce it correctly. The Hotel Oro Verde is the general manager to whom we need to say thank you to. His name is Fernando Arrigorriaga. And we say hi to him and also say thank you to Ingrid Rodriguez, who is usually helpful, very helpful with us. Now, where can science take us, or how far can we go? For the people of, let me take some breath and say this. Tula Sendirapuram. Leslie, you lived in India, so hopefully I said it correctly. Tula Sendirapuram is the place where Kamala Harris' maternal grandfather. And from that to where she has been able to reach is basically just because of thanks to education. And that's what we would like to instill in all of you tonight. With that said, I would like to welcome our wonderful partner tonight. And I'm talking about Consuelo Hidalgo. She is the Director of Cultural Affairs for the CEN, the Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano. Thank you so much, Consuelo, for being here, and would love to hear from you.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It's an honor to be here and be a co-host of this very, very important event. women leading in science. I think women are leading in so many ways in this last century. And we really support that. We are a binational center. We are focused on the union of Ecuadorian culture and the United States culture. And of course, part of our global culture is to empower women who have been very important figures that inspire us. So for us, all this matters a lot. I would like to thank especially to Robert Ayon, that is always very interested in working with us and organizing these events. Also, I would like to say this is some kind of premiere of what we will do, but we will start for the first time a STEM program at the CEN that will be guided and directed, all the content by him. And it's especially directed to underprivileged girls only program to get them interested in science, engineering, mathematics, and technology. So we are so glad to be here tonight. And in Women Leading in Science, we thank Cynthia Buteau, Cyan Proctor, and Pilar Cornejo that will be properly introduced in their careers. And of course, all the people that are here with us tonight, Leslie Eldridge, that it's from the U.S. Embassy. Thank you for your support. And all the people that are connected tonight that are interested in this topic and in our special guests, I thank you and I invite you to follow all the people that are today talking about different matters about women in science, and also that you will be following our website and our social media and Facebook of Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano, because we have a lot of programming that you might be interested. So I don't want to be, I don't want to bore you with all this speech, but I officially inaugurate this webinar, and thank you very much to everyone who has been part of this, and also my team, Fernanda and Kathy, for being organizing this to being tonight here, and Kurt in our IT. Thank you so much, because we are having a wonderful transmission tonight. Thank you and welcome to everyone.
Thank you so much, Consuelo Hidalgo. And yes, thank you so much, Kurt. Kurt also has a strange last name. Is it Thuro or Thure, something like that? Thuro, I think. And Kathy Carrillo, she's the person in charge of public relations at the CEN. I mentioned Leslie, the name Leslie before when I talked about India, and I was referring to Leslie Eldridge. She's here with us tonight. She's with the Department of State. She was in India as a consular office for almost 3 years, and now we are very honored to have her in Quito as an environment, science, technology, and health officer. Thank you so very much, Leslie Eldridge, for being here. And I'd like to everybody to welcome her as she opens her microphone and addresses us.
Thank you, Karina. First, I would like to say good evening. Good evening, Ms. Buteau, Drs. Cornejo and Proctor, and all of you attending tonight in this exciting event, this exciting week. And also congratulations and thank you to the Guayaquil Space Society and Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano for their dedication to making this event possible and for asking me to speak tonight. I've only lived in Ecuador for just under 6 months. As Karina mentioned, I was in India immediately preceding. But I'm so happy to serve in a beautiful, hospitable, and welcoming country. Just like Ecuador. I hope to have the opportunity to meet you all in the future, but for now, I am grateful for the amazing technological innovations that have made it possible for us to meet virtually. I serve at the United States Embassy in Quito as the Environment, Science, Technology, and Health Officer. But as you all know, those are all basically science, right? Every single one of those is a field of science. And while I'm not a scientist myself, I have the great privilege and honor of promoting science and innovation in our exciting US-Ecuador relationship. And I'm so happy to speak with you all this evening because events like this, highlighting the leadership and experiences of women in science, are important. And they're still important. And I want to start with just a few facts to explain why. Today, just under 30% of scientific researchers are women. And to date, only 21 women have been awarded Nobel Prizes in science disciplines, compared to just over 600 men. And that's not including economics, which we all know is the dismal science. And I can say that because I am an economist. But according to a 2019 UNESCO report, only 30% of the global female population has access to careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The same report also details that the participation rates of women in science and engineering courses in Latin America are lower than those of men, with percentages ranging from 20% to 28% in relation to their access with men. In Ecuador, we see even lower numbers. Only 16% of women are pursuing STEM careers. But why is this important? Obviously, we all think this is important because we're here tonight. But first and foremost, this is important from a human rights and an equality perspective. Equal access to education and opportunity is important on its own merit. Additionally, studies have shown that inclusion of women in science improves outcomes and the scientific process. It catalyzes creative thinking, reduces biases, and promotes more robust results. So it makes science better. And coming from an economic background, I must address the economic benefits of women in STEM. Generally, STEM jobs pay more, and thus increasing women's participation in science, technology, engineering, and math careers also has the power to close the gender pay gap, which, according to the Council of Foreign Relations, could boost women's cumulative earnings by $299 billion over the next 10 years, expediting global economic development. Women's participation in STEM fields could spur economic growth and promote gender equality worldwide. The United States government promotes women in science through grants and programming, such as STEM camps for girls, international exchanges, and fellowships for students and scientists, and even co-hosting the recent Summit on Women's Leadership in STEM this past October. In Ecuador, we're proud of our efforts to empower women to be successful in their endeavors. Toward this aim, we have created the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, AWE for its acronym in English. This program consists of training women entrepreneurs from all over the countries in different skills and abilities in order for their businesses to grow. We look forward to expanding this programming, particularly to focus on women in STEM. And while I cannot yet share details, I can confidently tell you that this is a priority area for us this year. And I encourage you to follow our social media and our website to get more details when some exciting news is released here in, I would say, about the next month. And as I reflect on this topic, I'm reminded of some recent inspiring examples of female scientists making breakthroughs, such as Dr. Kismekia Corbett, Dr. Catalin Carrico, Sarah Gilbert, and Nita Patel, whose research and leadership have made the quick development of COVID-19 vaccines possible. and of Doctors Emmanuel Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna, whose Nobel-winning gene editing method is considered one of the most significant discoveries in the history of biology. To return to my earlier comment on the importance of events like these, one of the most important factors in women's involvement and success in science is access to strong female role models. There have never been more female role models in science than there are now. And there's never been a more exciting time to be a woman in science. And tonight I look forward to hearing our three excellent speakers, all strong female role models in science. I look forward to listening to their comments and being inspired by their achievements and just being inspired by the bright future for women in science here in Ecuador. Thank you again so much for having me tonight. It's been a real privilege and an honor. I look forward to engaging more with you all in the future. And I look forward to hearing from our wonderful speakers. Thank you all.
Thank you so very much, Leslie, for your words. They're very inspiring, very, very, very inspiring. In Ecuador in 1889, there was a little girl who was the only child. Her name was Aurelia Palmieri. And maybe because she was the only child, and the parents decided, well, let's teach her things because we don't have a son to teach anything. And she was so bright that the parents decided, well, she needs some other guidance. And they did bring a very knowledgeable man to teach her. And he thought, well, she has learned pretty much everything there is to learn to graduate high school. The only problem was that at that time, girls in Guayaquil, by law, could not graduate high school. She passed everything, all the exams with wonderful grades. She spoke 4 languages fluently. She was actually asked questions for 3 whole hours in front of a huge audience at the city hall. She received a letter of commendation, but that was all she could receive because she was not allowed by law to graduate high school. And even though she wanted to learn medicine, she could not. So as a deference to her, she was allowed to just listen to classes, to medicine classes. And she did pass all the tests, but they had no validity. There was no academic grading for whatever she was doing. And it just so happens that General Eloy Alfaro was here in Guayaquil, directing Ecuador from Guayaquil. And this girl approached him and said, this is what happened to me. And he did expedite an order allowing her to graduate high school. And she became the first, and her title was just licenciada, like a licensed practitioner. But that's what later on opened the path for Matilde Hidalgo de Procel to become the first female doctor. And so whenever we go to high school, whenever we go to college, we don't realize how much women have worked on their lives to help us out. And now for the women who did take advantage of the education, we have 3 wonderful speakers tonight. And I would like to welcome Pilar Cornejo. I'm gonna read a little bit of her bio to you. Pilar Cornejo, in Ecuador, you might know her as Maria del Pilar Cornejo, has worked in climate variability and change, integrated water management, environmental sustainability, disaster risk reduction, resilience and policy making as human dimension integrator, Latin American and Caribbean coordinator, project leader, and Secretary of State when it comes to risk management. Currently, she's the director of the Pacific International Center for Disaster Risk. She's the dean of the FIMCM, and I'll let her explain what that is for us all. And she's very concerned with reaching the global 2030 agenda for ocean health, DRR, cities resilience, and policy making. With that, we welcome Pilar Cornejo. She's from Ecuador, and we're very, very honored to have her here.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Hello to everybody here. It's really an honor to be with all of you. It was kind of difficult for me to think about what to say. So I have a small, very small presentation just to help me. I'm gonna share it with you. And I put a title, The Road to Science, but I don't know if it's really a road, a path, a life, time thing, but it's something that I started to do when I was little. I have some role models along the way. One of them was my father. He liked to do science, but at that time in Ecuador, there were not that many institutes or funds for doing research. So he did something very nice for us. We are 2 girls and 4 boys. So for the girls, he opened an account in a bookstore, and we can go and buy any book we want. So this was really, really, really good. Along my whole life, he encouraged me to do anything. He said we can go anywhere, and that whatever we learned or wherever we travel, that will be with us all the time. So it was really, you know, in a very close society for women. I have to say I am close to 60 years old. So let's say about 50 years ago, women will go to traditional degrees on the university, maybe to become a teacher, very few medical doctors, maybe some sociologists or psychologists, but very, very few people went to STEM. So I decided to go to study oceanography. And this was because not only I love the ocean, but I had a high school teacher that opened my eyes to the oceans and made me wonder how it works, why we have the tide, the wave, what was inside. So after I finished my BS, I have some mentors that, you know, say to me, why don't you go for a master's? And then why don't you go for a PhD? And they also pushed me to go for the extra mile. And I think that was very interesting. You know, I remember once I was coming back to Ecuador for a conference, and the night before leaving Corvallis, Oregon, my advisor told me, if I were you, I will check your project for the course, and everything was in red. I was, you know, astonished. So I changed everything. I correct the project, and I got an 8. That was great. But he pushed me the extra mile. But in fact, I didn't have any female, you know, role model. Only my high school teacher, because there were no role models to follow here. Well, this is one of my favorite pictures in Antarctica. I have the chance to go there twice. First time as a scientist, and the second time as a policymaker. And I'm gonna be there, don't worry.
Pilar, it seems that whatever you're sharing is not showing on.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to do the sharing thing. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So I lost the screen. I'm sorry. So it will be good anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ooh.
So this is my picture in Antarctica, as I was saying. And on this picture, it is almost 10 years ago. So in 1990, I went the first time as a scientist, and around 2011, I went as a policymaker. And it's really, it has a special meaning for me. So what I have done my whole life, I work in groups. I really don't like to work by myself. I am more like a team person. And I have been in several teams. And these things are international because in the ocean area, we are, if you look at country by country, especially in Latin America, we're very few. Still, we're very few. So in the 90s, we decided to have a network and work together to complement each other and look how climate impacted society. Why, we have to have that many losses in agriculture, in fisheries, in health, in the cities. And later on, I got to know more about it and find out about sustainability and start working in environmental sustainability and always complain why policymakers and politicians didn't use science. So one day I got a phone call from one of my friends and he said to me, Pilar, now there is going to be a new state secretary about disaster risk reduction. So you have been complaining all the time. You have to take the challenge. You have to be now a policymaker to implement everything you say science can do. So I did, and it was really a challenge. It was stressful, but it was also very rewarding. And today, when I'm back in the university, I'm working under the hat, and I say hat because this is an Ecuadorian hat, very famous, of disaster risk reduction and climate change. Very happy because of yesterday action by President Biden on climate change, by the way. And what we need to do is to move and change and these science into policy, to translate that. So the policymakers, the mayors, the governors, the executive government can use this to improve the livelihood of our citizens, to improve the country's economy, and to be sustainable. I have to be thankful to the many people that have walked the path with me. It's not only my colleagues and other scientists, it's my family, my husband, my daughter, the extended family, the friends. We got a lot of support here. And I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but maybe because we are Latinos, it's different. The family and the friends is something that we keep close. So my message to all the girls is that we can do it. We can do anything we want. There is not limits. We have to always see the glass half full, not half empty. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Pilar. Thank you so much, and we have so much to learn from you. Now I'm going to ask now Cindy Buteau. If you look her up, you can find her under Cynthia Buteau. I'm gonna call her lovingly, just call her Cindy. Cindy is the president of Space Commerce Matters, a pioneer in low Earth orbit demand creation. Space Commerce Matters provides a number of services for space agencies and governments, non-traditional commercial customers, aerospace companies, and satellite service providers. Offerings include building demand with end-user customers for LEO activities. Studies highlight gap technologies related to LEO phenomena for R&D and marketing applications. Prior to this, Cynthia was a founding member of CASIS, the manager of the International Space Station National Lab. While there, Cynthia established and developed the demand model for private sector entities focused on utilization and value creation, which ultimately led to more than half of the research on board the ISSNL. Well, Cynthia, we'd love to hear from you. And it is so sad that we only have like 5 or 6 minutes.
I know, I'll be very
because it would be absolutely wonderful to actually have a full conference from each of you.
Well, I am so happy to be here, and I really appreciated your remarks as well as Leslie's, and I am just honored to follow Pilar and to see what you have accomplished in your life. You you really are a role model for all of us. So what I am going to do is share my screen really quickly. And it's, I guess, can you see my my screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what I want to do is talk about my career in space, and then maybe end, like this is going to be a couple of minutes. I can't match what Pilar just talked about, but when we talk about space, we talk about this continuum of the Earth, the Moon, and Mars. And when we talk about this radius where the International Space Station travels, it's really only about 400 kilometers, 250 miles above us, where the International Space Station travels, where the majority of our satellites are. That's what we call LEO, low Earth orbit. You then hear about governments, space agencies talking about cislunar, going to the moon. And you hear every space agency saying they've got a program to put a habitat or an explorer or a robotic vehicle back on the moon. We're also hearing about many things happening in terms of Mars. Why do we do this? And the point is, and you know, I've worked a lot over the last 10 years with many different astronauts that have left our planet. And there's always a common theme. We leave our planet to save our planet. And the way I think about it is, we go to the moon and we go to Mars for exploration, the same way that we explored for so many years in our history. We need to understand what caused the extinction of water, what caused climate change, what caused all of these very big events that could actually impact the safety and the longevity of our own planet. And then we go to low Earth orbit, just the International Space Station, that little area right above us, to do so many things that can save our planet. We're looking at novel materials. We're looking at sustainability. And Pilar talked about ocean health and climate change and sustainability. There's so much going on right now to understand the health of our ocean or the sustainability of our crops by going to low Earth orbit. We're looking at drug delivery systems. And Leslie talked about, you know, pandemic and what we're doing with COVID and drug discovery, vaccine discovery, monoclonal antibodies, which is happening right now with COVID-19. So much of that work is being studied using microgravity, which is in low Earth orbit. So there's so many things happening right now in space that so many of us are not aware of. And ultimately, it relates to these three phenomena: microgravity, which here on Earth, we have gravity, which has a lot of impact to everything we do, the extreme conditions, and the vantage point. And the work that we're doing right now is focused on using those phenomena to look at small scale manufacturing and research, to look at commercial activity, and to look at social responsibility. When I started the International Space Station National Lab, we helped stand up the organization that ran the ISS National Lab. We had zero commercial activity. You could not beg, borrow, or steal a commercial company to do anything in LEO because they did not think it was relevant. But we developed all sorts of indicators on the economic, the innovation, and the humankind social impact side, which they are all relevant, and they're relevant to everything we do here on Earth. This is just a little picture of the brands that we worked with the types of activity that they never thought. When I knocked on the door of AstraZeneca or BASF or Goodyear Tire, hello, would you like to do anything in space? They said, no, it's not relevant to us. But by the time we walked out of those meetings, they were doing these types of activities to benefit their terrestrial operations using that phenomena of LEO. And like Leslie, my background is not science. I am also an economist and a finance person. And I treat low Earth orbit just as I would treat a new marketplace. It just happens to be 250 miles above us instead of going across an ocean. And these are the types of things we can do there. The most important thing I think we're doing right now is social responsibility and sustainability. So everything Pilar talked about, we can do, and we can do better in space using microgravity, remote sensing applications, all of the things we're talking about to look at all of these big issues that the UN looks at. So if you look at the sustainability goals, so many of these that I've outlined in bold black here, you can actually use the phenomena of space to help clean water, zero hunger, good health and well-being, you know, and on and on. And then ultimately, my last slide is this, and we can talk more about this. I think it's important, and Pilar actually gave a really compelling talk about what brought her to science and to space and to everything that she's doing. I think my pathway shows that anyone, all of you out there, can come to space and can come to science, technology, engineering, math, and to some of these disciplines that you didn't think were possible for you. And so I started at Boston College. I was a finance major. Actually, I was a political science major. My father said, no, 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 you will not make any money in political science. So I became a finance major, and I went all through this world, and I went to Brandeis and got my master's in international economics and finance. And I focused most of my work on new market creation in Russia, in the UK, all through Europe. And I then ran into the people that were starting space as a new market. And I became part of the team that stood up the International Space Station National Lab. And all of the work that we did to create a marketplace was really compelling between 2011 and 2018. And then I realized I actually needed to walk the talk. If I was such a big proponent of the commercialization of space, I needed to start my own company, Space Commerce Matters, to take advantage of that. And now we're really succeeding. And I am really confident we are going to see a scalable and sustainable new marketplace in low Earth orbit that is going to be the marketplace that we're going to do so many things that are going to improve what we do here on Earth. So I can't wait to talk to you guys more. I'll stop sharing now and turn it back over to you.
Thank you so very much, Cindy. It's incredible. It's incredible everything that can be done. And when we lose that fear, it is so scary to knock at somebody's door and say, "I'm selling you something." Imagine saying, "Okay, I am selling this, not just to the world, but I'm selling the universe what I have." Okay, now we are going to say hello to Cyan Proctor. Cyan is an American explorer. She's a scientist, a STEM communicator, and aspiring astronaut. She is a geology, sustainability, and planetary science professor at South Mountain Community College. She was the education outreach officer for the first Hawaii space exploration analog and simulation mission. Whenever she says high seas, she's actually talking about that. High seas is a NASA-funded analog habitat for human spaceflight to Mars. She has also appeared in 3 educational TV shows. She was on The Colony Season 2, which was aired on the Discovery Channel in 2010. She also appeared in the 2016 PBS series Genius by Stephen Hawking. She's in episode 2, Are We Alone? And she's currently featured on the science show Strange Evidence. She will also share with us that on July 22nd, 2020, he was announced as one of the top 15 finalists of UAE Mars Shot Contest. Cyan, we are here. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure to be here today to share with you my space journey and really my journey as a woman in STEM. And so I've got a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you here. Let's see if we can get this going. And can you all see my screen okay? So as a teacher, I like to do interactivity. So as we go through the PowerPoint, I invite you to actually go and use the chat function. And as I put up these questions, put up your answers to these questions. Wow, I think I have a pen going here, but all right. So how do I erase that? I don't even know. Pen, reset. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that won't stay there the whole time. But my background is I have an undergrad degree in environmental science, and then I went off to Arizona State to get my master's and my PhD. My master's is in geology and my PhD is in science education. And if you had told me when I was 16, 17 years old that by choosing a career in STEM, that I would be able to travel around the world, that I would be a finalist for the astronaut program, that I'd live in moon and Mars simulations, I would have been like, no way, that's not going to happen. But the reality is that as I pursued my science careers, opportunities have just kept coming and coming and coming. And that's what's great about pursuing STEM, is that it not only is the world open to you, but the solar system is open to you. And so what I want to do is share with you what happened. Let me see if I can clear this. I don't know if, let's see if hidden, no, I don't know. I think that hopefully I'll stop writing. One experience that I had, oh, I really want to make sure that goes away. Sorry about that. I'm not used to this pen coming up on me. So I'm going to see if I can end this.
What Robert was saying is that if you stop sharing and then you open it again, then it will go away.
Oh, that's what we need to do. That's what I was thinking, but that's the first time that's happened on me. And I know you're recording, so why would we want to have that on the recording? All right. And so my first question to all of you out there is, would you go to Mars? Are you an A, B, or C? And so in the chat, you can put down, are you an A, a B, or C? Would you go to Mars? No, it looks like we have some A's coming in, a lot of A's. A C, no way, prefer Earth. Yep, A's and C's are coming in here. And so I will tell you that for me, I have always been a moon person. The idea of going to Mars feels so foreign and so far away. But I would not turn down a trip to Mars if someone said, Cyan, we're going to send you to Mars. I'm like, okay, let's go. But if I had a choice between moon and Mars, I think I would definitely choose moon, where I can see Earth rise. And so, but what's interesting is that I want to share with you one of the experiences that I've had here on Earth, and that is to be a researcher in the high seas habitat. And you might have noticed that that was my background. Here's the picture here. And down here, you can see an analog astronaut, this tiny little person next to the high seas habitat. And so what this is it is an analog to Mars or moon. You can see that it's very rocky, not a lot of vegetation. And this is on the big island of Hawaii. And what they did was in 2013, they established this new habitat to help us investigate things for long duration space flight. If we're going to go to the moon, if we're going to go to Mars, well, how do we prepare for that here on Earth so that when we go to the moon and Mars, we reduce the risk? And so analogs are a great way to do that. So what about the high seas habitat? Would you go to live in the high seas habitat? Now, oh, look at that. Hey, Cindy, sure. And the thing about it is, now think about this. Would you go and live in the high seas habitat for 2 weeks? Would you go for a month? Would you go for 4 months? Would you go for 6 months? How about a year? How about 3 years? So the very first time that I lived in a high seas habitat, I signed up to go and live there for 4 months. And so it was a 4-month mission with an international crew. And so this is the crew that I was living with. I didn't know any of them. We came together. And what was great about this is if you look at our crew, we're international. Our commander here is from Belgium. Our engineer Simon is from Canada. Oleg was our geologist. He grew up in Russia until he was 12. Jahaira is Puerto Rican. You have women. So it's diverse, international, it's inclusive. And when we think about space and what we want from space, that's really what we were thinking about, is how do we make space accessible to everyone? And what happens when you do that? So how long would you volunteer to live in a high seas simulation? The longest that they've had so far is 1 year. And so could you do a year? That means all your holidays, your birthday, everything would be in this Mars simulation, living with 5 other people in that tiny dome for that long. And so think about that and what impact that has. But if you think about how that relates to COVID somewhat, you can start to get that idea of what it means to be isolated for a long duration. I like that some people are saying yes. So what's interesting is that we were funded specifically to investigate food strategies for long duration space flight. And a lot of times people are like, food, why? Why would you, NASA want to know about food and space? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. One, we all need it to survive, so you got to eat. But when you're up in space, what happens is that because of some of the physiological changes, you get puffy in the face, food doesn't quite taste or smell the same. And so you can suffer from something called menu fatigue. And if you start losing weight in space, that can lead to all kinds of health issues. And so NASA's thinking, well, if we go to Mars, we have 1/3 of Earth's gravity. Now we could maybe creatively cook. And when you get into being able to cook and have meals together, like on the ISS, they're sitting around a table having a meal together. Now in space, there's no up or down, so they don't even need a table. But that idea of familiarity and the culture around food and sharing a meal with people is something that is really important, but we don't often think about in space. So when we think about going to the moon and Mars, what would you want to eat on the moon and Mars? Because when it comes to culture and food, what you bring matters, and how you share your culture matters. And these are things that people don't often think about. French fries, okay, I like that. Cheetos. So one of the things that I learned, I've lived in the high seas habitat twice, is that culture matters. And when we think about culture in space, that is going to be decided, or cultural norms in space is all going to be decided by who goes up. And if we aren't inclusive in who goes up, then you won't have those cultural norms that we have all around the world, and we'll be missing something. Oh, someone said wine, I like it. And so when you think about culture and space, we can think about sci-fi, Star Wars and Star Trek. So sometimes people are like, are you a Star Trek fan or are you a Star Wars fan? Like, which one would you pick, Star Wars or Star Trek? And I often say, well, you don't have to choose either. When we think about Star Wars, we really should be thinking about a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space. And what I mean by that is a Jedi space. Jedi. So yes, let's all be Jedi when it comes to thinking about our role in promoting space. How do we make it just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive? And when we think about Star Trek, we think about what it was like in the past, the old way, exclusive, competitive. When they talk about that famous line at the bottom here, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, some of you are old enough to know that the original Star Trek, no one wasn't what it said. It said to boldly go where no man has gone before. And so this whole idea of how do we move away from this old way of exclusive, competitive space to this new space of inclusive, and instead of competing, complementary. How do we complement each other and support each other? And so when I think about space and transforming space, I think of it as a personal journey. And that's why my motto is space to inspire. How do you take not space in outer space, but the space around you, this unique space that you have, your unique strengths and your love of science and STEM and technology and all of that stuff to inspire those within your reach and beyond. And so the human side of space is personal. And, you know, when we think about that, we can all be active participants in that if we choose to invest in STEM, women in STEM. Our culture matters, representation matters, and I encourage you to unleash your Jedi within and to use your unique space to go out and make a difference with whatever you're passionate about. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Science. Thank you so much. I'm thinking about how can I unleash my Jedi.
Yes, unleash your Jedi space, your just,
Yes.
equitable, diverse, and inclusive space.
Now, one way I would like to add, though, even though I actually studied economics, it seems that economics is the theme of the night in a way today. But I'm also a poet, so I would like actually that STEM to be changed into STEAM.
Yes.
Science, technology, engineering, arts, and
Math.
mathematics.
Yeah.
I just went blank. And in fact, I was thinking so much about Amanda Gorman yesterday. She was absolutely outstanding. It's been such a wonderful week for women. Now, in this part, what I would like to do is something that is usually not done, and I would like Pilar to answer one question from Cindy and one question from Cyan, and then we'll change. Is that okay? So Cindy, your turn to ask Pilar something. We'd love to hear your.
Part of my background is not thinking I was different than men and feeling I was part of, there were no barriers. I guess, Pilar, my question to you is, did you feel there were barriers as a woman in all of these great achievements that you talked about? And if so, how did you overcome them?
It's a very interesting question now, because you have to see the environment. We were 4 brothers and 2 sisters. So I was accustomed to be in a male group. I didn't see the difference. For me, it was the same. And maybe that's how we grew. And I'm not sure. When I went to the university, maybe the only thing that I changed was that I studied here in the same university I'm teaching now, the Polytechnic University. And Sport at that time has like in my junior year, maybe 10 women and 400 men. So I stopped using skirts. And from then on, I only wear pants, you know? So maybe something like that. But really, in the university, I didn't feel like isolated or, you know, that there was a problem to be female. Very few times. I think only once I had a problem with a professor, but because of that, he never taught again in the university, no? You know, I have to fight for I say I have an A in this test, and he said, no, women cannot have better grade than men. So that was it, but that was it. But most of the time, discrimination has come from women, not from men.
Mhm.
And when you see, this was in the past in the administrative area. So they will see a male professor and a female professor, and they will service first the male professor. And in general, in my area, in oceanography, still we have very, very few women. Very few women in being deans or faculty. maybe in South America, in Latin America, I did this calculation. We are about like 20% female and 80% males. But if you go to US, it's even worse, you know, in terms of oceanography, in ocean sciences. You seldom see somebody leading NOAA. I think there have been only one woman leading NOAA, which is Sylvia Earle, an oceanographer. I haven't seen any other woman leading NOAA. NOAA is the National Oceanic Administration in the US. But I think that's changing. And I think other thing that is important is what Karina said about STEAM. Because now STEM might be discriminating STEM. And I think STEM is the way to go. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pilar. Now, Cyan, your turn to ask Pilar.
Oh, yeah. You know, when you're thinking about how we live in on a water planet, and thinking about how important the oceans are, what would you like to see happening in the next 5 years when it comes to advancements in whether it's sustainability? What would you like to see us in 5 years and then maybe 10 years out happening to make real change, especially since policy is part of that necessary step?
I think we need to work more with the policymakers and city mayors. You know that over 60% of the population live by the coast. And by the end of this century, I think it's going to be like 70% of the population. So I think we have to change city mayors' mind. But it's to us, the people in the university, because as one of my friends mentioned once, we are the one that educate the policymakers. So we have been failing in something. So I think the challenge here is to educate the new policymakers. Maybe it's not 5 years from now, but we have to do something about it. So I think that's like my challenge for the next 5 years, and it takes a lot of time and lobbying, and you know.
Do you think more scientists need to go into policy like you've done?
I think so, and I think it's important because you know things and you know what to demand. I mean, if I knew there is a satellite that gives me floods, I can give the order. I want that map, you know. But if I don't know that there is a map that can show me where are the floods, then I cannot do much. Somebody can bypass me and say, oh, no, it's not possible. Maybe in 2 years, or, you know. But if you are a scientist and go into policy, you can do some changes, maybe faster than if you just have the average guy or girl.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, Pilar, it's your turn to ask Cindy something.
Cindy, I know also space is a guy's world. I mean, I have been in several meetings of the GEO group and looking at the companies that put their products, and I seldom see women, you know, I mostly see guys. So how do you feel that this is changing? What do you recommend, for example, to my students that study satellites and use satellites and use drones for doing their research and their work, and maybe some consultancy? How do you approach, you know, this guy's work, because it's also a guy's work?
Yeah, no, and I think I would say, in addition to it being a guy's world, it's an old, quote unquote, boys network, but the old boys could also be old girls. There's an old network, and in space activity. And if you look at any of the space agencies, and right now I'm working pretty much with every space agency, there is a way of thinking that we have the answers, we've been doing this, we have this bureaucracy, it's bureaucracy. It's a way of thinking in a way that can't be penetrated. And I think the way that I have found personal success in dealing with it is coming at it from a non-traditional space way. Traditional space is saturated. People know how to build rockets. They know how to build propulsion systems. They know how to build all of the supply side of space. What space doesn't understand is the demand side, the pharmaceutical drugs, the sustainability efforts we're doing with water and oceans, all of the downstream markets that are not as bureaucracy and dominated by the same old players. And I think when you come in to an old legacy system with new thinking and new understanding of markets and how those markets can benefit from space, you will be heard. And that is how that's how I've achieved my own personal success and the success of my company. So I can't say more than that. That would be my only advice, is come at it differently. It's a legacy environment, and you're coming at it from a new way of thinking about it, a new paradigm.
Thank you so much. Now, before Cyan asks you, Cindy, a question, I would like you to please share with the audience your experience with that very fine chic store called Target. Oh, I mean Target.
We do call it Target. So I don't know if everybody here knows, but Target is literally the #1 seller of bathing suits on the whole planet. We didn't know that. We went to Minneapolis, knocked on their door, and had a whole series of meetings with them about doing research on the International Space Station. And we were talking about chlorine on bathing suits, woven materials, because in addition to selling other people's products in Target, they actually manufacture and produce their own items, and they do their own research and development. And it was during one of these conversations, they mentioned it takes 700 gallons of water to produce one cotton t-shirt. 700 gallons of water to produce one cotton t-shirt. That is not sustainable. And from there, we were saying, well, what if we go to space and think about how to desalinize water, and you can use ocean water to water crops. And we were brainstorming around all of these ideas. We went to their corporate social responsibility people, and they gave us $1 million for a social responsibility program focused on more sustainable crop production. We ran the competition, and we educated cotton farmers, scientists, academics, a whole range of people. Why would microgravity or the extreme conditions or Earth observation remote sensing applications benefit sustainable crop production? We got over 80 really good proposals. 3 were chosen, and 2 were based on plant structures, plant root structures. 1 was a gene editing project, and 1 was a remote sensing project where a farmer could look at an app and understand the water table conditions of his or her field as they were planting their crops. And the bottom line is, space can solve so many different things using those 3 phenomena of the microgravity, the extreme conditions, and the vantage point. And you can open up all of these different avenues of solving these problems if you just do the translation. Why space to this Earth-based problem? So that was our Target story of really Target stepping up and doing a lot to try to look at sustainability here on Earth using space.
It's so interesting, and basically it's all a matter of knowing what you need and not do not allowing to anything be the limit of where you can go. That's so interesting. So Cyan, it's your turn to ask Cindy.
Oh, Cindy, I'm so excited to be able to ask you a question because I love the whole, solving for space, solving for Earth. As a geoscientist, even though I love space exploration, it's all about planet Earth. And I was thinking of how we are transitioning from the traditional, government-based exploration, NASA, ESA, JAXA, all of these space agencies to this commercial space of SpaceX and, Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and stuff. And when I'm thinking about that, I'm wondering, how do you feel about a Jedi space? And should these commercial companies have this idea of just, equitable, diverse, and inclusivity as part of their expanse out into the solar system? And then, because when you're thinking about that, who gets to go, who has access and stuff like that, if we don't, there's a way we can hold government agencies to some extent accountable, but can we also hold commercial entities accountable when we're thinking about these kinds of things? And what do you think about that?
It's a really interesting question. And, as you were taught, I loved everything you said, and I love Jedi space, and I am like your new cult follower on that front. It's interesting because, as you just mentioned, every space agency right now is focused on leaving LEO and focusing their efforts on the moon, Mars, and beyond on exploration. And that's why they want a commercial marketplace in LEO. They don't want to be the only customer. They want commercial organizations to come in and create a marketplace, just like there's a marketplace in the US or Ecuador or Europe or wherever. And it's a really interesting question because, how do new markets form? And can, instead of it being a wild west of just a capitalistic model, can you put in some parameters as you've described to create a new marketplace? Because it's still in its infancy. This new marketplace is still being very heavily supported by governments. Can you put in some training wheels or some guidepost or some guides or whatever we want to call them, so that there are these fundamental principles of this new marketplace? And I don't think I have an answer right now, but I think I'm going to think a lot about it. And I would love to continue talking with you about it because I think it's an amazing concept.
Yeah, I think it's really complex, like you said, and it's emerging. But what I love about space is that we get to write the narrative, and it's being written right now. And so, it's the first time in human history where we're the authors. And so I feel like that we have the opportunity to make, the right choices. But I don't know if everybody's having that conversation. And that's one of the important things, is that we've got to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
And women need to lead the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pilar, your question to Cyan.
I have a question. It's like, I think at least here we have been most of the time smart working, working from home because of the pandemic. So in a way, it has shown us that we have to change our consuming habits. So how do you feel like being in the high seas? Did it change and modify your behavior toward things that you thought you need?
Oh,
Are you more
absolutely.
frugal now?
Absolutely. And so one of the things was just thinking about food and food technology. Living in this high seas habitat for 4 months, investigating food strategies, well, we were cooking with freeze-dried fruits, meats, and vegetables. And so when we think about that technology, and when I went home and I looked at what I was keeping in my freezer, and then I thought to myself, well, why do I have frozen vegetables, which, will go bad and takes all this energy, not only to, when you harvest them, you've got to freeze them, and then in the transportation process, you got to keep it frozen, and it gets to your supermarket, and it's got to be put in a freezer section, and then you buy it and you bring it home and you freeze it, and it takes energy, and then you forget about it and it goes bad and turns into a big giant block of ice. And instead, I could buy that same vegetable freeze dried. And now, you think about when you harvest that vegetable, instead of shipping the nutrients in the water around the world, and water takes weight, you pull the water out, you leave the water at the source, and you just shoot you just ship the nutrients. And as a result, it becomes self-stable, the microbial growth, so your chances of getting sick reduce, all of these things. And instead of all that energy that you've now used, it sits on your shelf in your pantry until you're ready to use that. And so now if you go into my kitchen, you'll see that I don't buy frozen vegetables and I don't buy frozen fruit anymore because I have freeze dried that are sitting in my pantry.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Cindy, your turn to ask Cyan a question.
And so my question is this, just based on our last exchange, your vision of Jedi is really powerful. What actions can we take from this discussion today to further your vision of what you talked about? What can we all do here today?
Well, that's a great question. I think part of it, I think my a Jedi space and space to inspire are entwined. And so when we're thinking about, again, that space to inspire, we're talking about your individual unique space, the space you inhabit that goes everywhere with you. How do you take your unique strengths and this space and inspire those? Well, if you have a Jedi framework, of just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive in whatever you do, whether it's space related or, within your community, that by having that mindset that you have the power to make change in this space, that's really powerful. And if we all have that mindset that your space is powerful and you have the ability to make positive change, and if you focus on that just, equitable, diverse, and inclusiveness, then you'll just open up things for people in ways that you'll never even imagined. And the more we spread that message and have that as a global kind of phenomenon, I think that we will actually make real change on our planet and for humanity.
Absolutely, absolutely, and change comes from from things being complemented. I notice your yin and yang in your logo. Now, we did talk about strong female role models in science in general, in STEM, and I absolutely cannot keep myself silenced in this. And I know somebody out there is going to hate me for it, and I know she's thinking, "Oh my gosh, no, Mom, no." But my daughter is there. Is part of the in the chat right now. She's hiding her last name. She appears only as Gabrielle, and but how do you raise somebody to go into science? And how do you, just what Pilar was saying, we need to realize that we are the ones raising either the people who are going to make the changes, or we are raising the man who's going to set boundaries for women. And so in the way that my children were raised, I actually lied to Gabby twice in her life, and she still bugs me for it. One, I told her that Santa Claus existed. The other one is I told her that she sang beautifully, and then she heard her voice like when she was 13, and she goes, "Mom, you lied to me." But not only it was a matter of saying you can do it all, but also saying to the kids, the boys, you can do it all. So the male in my family were raised to know how to cook and how to serve a woman. And the female, the only female in my family, Gabby, was taught that math can take you places. And so she is, I think, one of the 4 women who graduated in her group at the U.S. Naval Nuclear School, and she also has a degree in mechanical engineering. So when it comes to wearing high heels and a miniskirt, that's fine. But then if your car breaks down, you can actually fix it. How wonderful is that? How absolutely wonderful is that? Well, it's been an incredible night. We do have some interesting questions. Some of them have been answered already. Now, Cyan, if you could ask a question from Yorka Bosisio. What is being planned to deter space pollution from the rocket boosters and other materials? The images of Everest and the trash is not sweet.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really complex question. And it's funny because I actually don't have the answer to that. There's a lot of problems when it comes to pollution in space, satellites, and we need people that take on that challenge and come up with novel solutions. And I think Cindy can probably jump in here with some insight on this too. And it's not just what's happening in space, but also when we're talking about our oceans and pollution and, Everest. And so how do we start taking these kind of responsibilities? And I've got to say, one of the biggest things is plastic. We have to get off the plastic. It has invaded every, part of our existence. And if you go back to even when I was a kid, plastic wasn't really a big thing. We didn't have as much. We had glass, but we were recycling it. We had aluminum, we were recycling it. Plastic is a lot more complex. And so we've brought this in, and that's what humans do. We figure things out and we create. And then we realize, oh, man, what we created isn't necessarily the best. So then we have to come up with these solutions. And that's one of the reasons why we need people to go in and take up steam and figure out novel ways for these wicked problems that we're facing. And instead of thinking, when you go about school and you're thinking about a major, and don't think about the major that you want to have or the degree you want, because that really puts you in a silo. Think about the problem you want to spend your life solving. Like if you say to yourself, if you're 16 or 17 and you say to yourself, man, I really want to do something about the plastic in the oceans. Okay, now because you have this question and this problem that you want to solve, the classes you will take and what you'll do to get that, to solve that problem will take you in all kinds of different directions, from engineering to oceanography to, even learning how plastics are formed and the chemistry and all of those things. And so becoming more question driven in our educational system, I think could help us go a long way.
Absolutely. Now, we also face a problem, and I think it's mostly well, it's actually everywhere in the world, pretty much, and that has to do with corruption. And if I recall correctly, yes, Gabriela Venegas mentioned, well, it doesn't matter the career a woman can choose. We will always find trouble. And in her case, she says, I was the only woman studying my career, and I graduated with 90 over 100, got a mechanical engineering degree, and it wasn't enough. The job was for a man who paid to get his thesis done. That's something that the U.S. is really working on making sure that there is no corruption when it comes to getting into colleges, that there is no corruption in certain other areas. What I've noticed in some parts of Latin America, though, is that you can actually pay somebody to make your college thesis. And so now we're talking about a even bigger problem. It's not just the glass ceiling that we women might get, but we have to work on a lot of other areas, not just the relationship man and woman, but the relationship mankind with mankind. Now, the Guayaquil Space Society, as I said, was founded on November 2019, and one of our founding members happens to be somebody who is also well-trained in economics. And today is the 21st day of January of the year 2021 of the 21st century. And we are supposed to finish this at 21 hours. And it's almost 21 hours. So I'm going to welcome economist Francisco Sweet. He's with us and he will be saying the closing words for this wonderful, wonderful webinar. Francisco Sweet was the Secretary of Finance of Ecuador, and we are very honored to have him as part of the Guayaquil Space Society. So Francisco, we are here and you are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Karina. First, I have to begin with an apology. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend to the entire webinar because sometimes life gets complicated, and certainly when it's 21, 21, 21, 21, then all of a sudden you get 21 things at the same time. So in any case, I want to refer to the fact that this group of enthusiasts, space enthusiasts in this part of the world, are driven by a vision, and that the vision, our main visionary is Robert Dayon, a good friend of mine, who has essentially single-handedly built up these ideas. I have helped him along and provide support whenever possible, because I like him, believe that the future of humanity lies in the stars, and it's not just a phrase. It is a fact, a historical fact, peering deep into the future. So I'm always fascinated by the advances of science that have come along with the space exploration. I can confess to the fact that I followed the American space program since the Mercury project. So that takes me way back. It really takes me way back to the very beginnings of this space odyssey. By the way, I did see Space Odyssey 2, 2001, which wasn't a very engaging film. So in any case, we want you folks in the US to know that you have friends here, that you have people who want to learn from you, from your experiences, from your own visions and accomplishments, that we admire and respect. The advances of science that have come along in this last half century. There have been pioneers, and those pioneers have brought out a crop of talent, like we have seen tonight, and that this is really what drives the better aspects of humanity. So in that sense, please understand and feel, as we do, that we are here in a group of friends, that we have in our own way our projects and as I said before, visions, that we believe that there are powerful reasons, even more earthbound, with the advances in space exploration, with the development of satellites to improve the agriculture, like water, climate change in this part of the world, weather forecasting, and all these things that are great, and also just checking out whether the Chinese vessels are coming along and are they in fact depredating our oceans. So these are these are things that that we believe are very very practical. In fact, in the next few days, Robert and I will go to visit the person who is in charge of the development of the new Guayaquil airport, because we think that there is a chance of using that platform also to become a budding spaceport. And the economics make a lot of sense. So in any way, again, and for the third time, we thank you very much for your presence and your time here. We reiterate that we share the same objectives and that we have a lot of respect for you guys. Good night.
Thank you so very much, Francisco. Thank you so much also, Leslie Eldridge, Consuelo Hidalgo, Kathy Carrillo, Fernando Arrigorriaga, Robert here with us, Gabby, also from the Space Society, and of course, our wonderful, wonderful speakers, Pilar Cornejo, Cindy Buto, and Cyan Proctor. What I'm showing you right now is the faces of 21 women of color and who are innovators in NASA. Some of them started as early or were born around the end of 1800s. We have come a long way, have come an incredibly long way. Thank you so much. And please think of Guayaquil and Ecuador as your next place where you can put a simulator. We welcome all analog astronauts. Cindy, we've had also some wonderful speakers regarding space commerce. You're always welcome to be here. Pilar, Roberto, Gabi, Francisco, and I will be there to welcome you at the airport, which hopefully will be not just a regular airport, but the Guayaquil Spaceport. With that, I thank all of you for being with us tonight. It is absolutely free to be part of the Guayaquil Space Society. So get a hold of Robert Ayon, and we would love to welcome you aboard. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Have a wonderful January, and let's be safe this 2021. Thanks so much.
I love that. I love that, Pilar.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you so
me.
much. Thank you.
And I would love to come visit. So I'll just put that out
Me
there.
too. Me too. Let's go together. Let's go
Yes.
together.
I think that would be awesome.
Right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.